Hello all and welcome to Crochet Designs. My name is Mary and today we are working on part 2 of our hooded capelet for Halloween. Get excited. Now if you are joining us new, firstly welcome. Secondly, I will leave a link to part 1 in a description box down below. The very first link you see in that description box down below, and that description box is kind of like a little triangle thing, and just click on that and you can find part 1. In the meantime, before you go actually to start it, in part 1 I mentioned when you head off on your own and complete your hoodie, I mentioned to do 22 rows from our starting row. But naughty me has forgotten that our capelet starts from our shoulder blades and not from the top of our neck where a normal hoodie starts from. So you need extra rows on both sides. So altogether you need another 8 extra rows, okay? So I ended up making from here to the very top 30 rows, all right? So what I would like for you to do before you're joining us here now, continue along with your V-stitches, your rows, get up to 30 rows of your hooded section, and then come back and join us right here, right now. All right, so let's get started with the second part. For the second part, all you will need is the same hook that you've been using all along. You may or may not need your scissors or your darning needle, depending on how far you get with your part on this tutorial. So for now, the rest of us are going to get together and continue our hood. When you get to your 30th row, your hood will still not cover your head completely. You need to do a few more rows, but the reason I've stopped you here was because we're going to do some rows where we're going to turn our hooded section a little bit curved, and it's not a lot, it's very minimal, okay? And it's going to be the next few rows where we're going to start making this section here smaller than the rest. How do we do that, I hear you ask? Let's get going and I'll let you know. So you would have finished off, by the way, you will need a couple of more stitch markers too today. Sorry guys, you'll need at least 2 or 3 more stitch markers, depending on how many rows or how many clusters of your V-stitch you've got across, okay? Now my clusters, they ended up to be 38 V-stitch sets in the round, okay? Half of 38 is 19. I've done my math there. For you, you may have 37, you may have 34, you may have 33, you may have a different number completely. We've been working on our red one and I'm just playing with the red one. I'm not doing a full piece. Right now we should all have our 30 rows complete. Now what I want you to do just quickly is count your V-stitches, 1, 2, 3 and so on. Count them all the way across. Now I ended up with an even amount of V-stitches, which was 38 V-stitches across. Now if you ended up with an even amount of stitches, divide yours in half and put your stitch markers, 1 in each side. So I had 19 across this way and 19 across this way. This is not 19, okay? This is just a practice swatch, okay? So I ended up with putting my stitch marker on the 19th this way and my stitch marker on the 19th this way. Now, if you had an odd amount of V-stitches across, just do 1 more row of V-stitches for us and meet us back here at the end of this row. But we can actually do that together anyways. So everyone find your 2 middle V-stitches. For the odd numbers, you don't have to do anything. All you need to do, like if you had 37 or 35 or 41, all you need to do is another V-stitch row across. But for the rest of us, chain 1, 2, 3. And this is all the even V-stitches across. We all need to do this, all right? So V-stitch, even V-stitches, off you go doing your normal V-stitches, like so, until you get to that first stitch marker, all right? Go ahead and do that now, and I'll meet you there in a moment. Alrighty guys, here we are at our very first stitch marker, yes? Oh, that's too close. All right, in that V-stitch with the first stitch marker, take out your stitch marker for now. In there, you're just going to put 2 double crochets, no chains. All right, so 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Now what I want you to do is pop your stitch marker in the last stitch that you just did. Okay? And now in that next space, you can take that stitch marker out, you do the same. 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, no chains. Again, popping your stitch marker in the last stitch that we just did. All right, and for the rest of the row, what are you doing? You are V-stitching across like normal. All right, so continue along this way, all the way across the row. Get to this section right here and I'll meet everyone there in a moment. Alrighty guys, where we should be at the moment is right here. This is where everyone should be at the moment, all right? So now we're going to flip our work like normal because this is where we're going to start our row and come across this way. Now with the even amount of people, you leave yours exactly the same and just follow along with me. With the odd people who've got odd amount of stitches along here, divide yours in half, find the center one, go back 1 and back 1, place your stitch markers in those 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you've got 1 there and 1 there and then 1 in the middle. So place your stitch markers along the sides, like that, as if you've got your 3 going, all right? But for the rest of us, we're going to stay this way. So remember, odd people, you should have 1, 2, 3 stitches that you're going to be working on, okay? All right, so we're going back to this piece here. We're going to chain up 1, 2 and 3, whoops, and we're going to V-stitch all the way to that stitch marker where everyone is, the very first stitch marker. All right, what I'm going to do is just pop this on fast for you and I'll meet you at that first stitch marker in a moment. Double crochet, chain 1 and double crochet, and there we go. That's the V-stitch just before our stitch marker. All right, now this is for odds and evens. Now this is for everybody. Let's get a close-up. With the odd amount of V-stitches, I want you to do 2 double crochets in this space, 2 in your next space and 2 in your third. But for the rest of us with the even amounts, you're going to skip this double crochet and you're going to pop a double crochet 2 together in these next 2 stitches. Now let's get a close-up of that stitch because that can be tricky. So I'm going to take this stitch marker out for now. All right, pop the yarn over your hook. We're going to be doing those 2 double crochets together. So we're going to be skipping that first stitch because that's a part of this V-stitch, yeah? So we skip that first stitch, we're jumping into that stitch that we had our stitch marker in. Pop your hook in, pull a loop through, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, hold it there, yarn over your hook, jumping straight into the next stitch. Into the stitch, pull a loop through, 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, 2, 3, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. You need to pop a stitch marker in the V-stitch right next to that stitch that you did together. All right, so that was a stitch we did together. Pop your stitch marker in that V-stitch right there and hold it there. All right, now you're going to do the same with this stitch. Take that stitch marker out, okay, and you're going to do 2 double crochets together. So you're jumping straight into your next stitch, pull a loop through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, hold it there, yarn over into your next stitch, pull a loop through, 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 3 that were on your hook. Oh, hang on, we need to do a V-stitch in the next V-stitch there. Chain 1 and finish off your V-stitch. Pop your stitch marker in that V-stitch right there. I'm going to pop up a loop for a minute. And that's what you should have. So kind of tugging in a little bit, which is what we want because we're going to start closing up a little bit in the center. Now for the odd amount of V-stitches across, we'll be working on your row and the next row. Everybody needs to come back here and meet us at the very first stitch marker, both odds and even rows. Get to this stitch marker here and I will meet you there in a moment. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of this row here. Just take that stitch marker out and do a normal V-stitch in there. For the even people, in your stitch marker you're doing a normal V-stitch. Like so. Well, everyone do V-stitches where the V-stitches are, put it that way, okay? Now, for the odd amount of people, what you would have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 double crochets. You've got 2, 4, 6 sets of double crochets. What you need to do is do your 2 together, okay? So let me just show you over here somewhere. Let's pretend like we're doing 2 together here. Odd people, this is what I want you to do. 1, 2, 3, don't worry about that. We're going to do 2 together for odd people. Yarn over your hook, double crochet in your first, pull a loop through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, jump into your next double crochet, pull a loop through, 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 3. So that's what the odd people have to do. You have to do that 3 times in the next 3 stitches. Now for us evenies, I'm making words up as I go along. These were the 2 stitches that we did together, all right? Now I need you to put your stitch marker in there. That stitch there and that stitch there, you're going to put a double crochet on each of those stitches. So you're going to miss this stitch, jump into the next, like there, with a double crochet. 1, and that's that join 2 together from before. Yeah, double crochet in your next 2. All right, and in that space, you're just doing a normal V-stitch. 1 and 2. All right, and now in that V-stitch, that's where we need to put the stitch markers. So even amount of people should have their stitch markers in 2 stitches, 2 of your V-stitch sets after your 2 double crochets, before and after, all right? With the odd amount of people, you should have your stitch markers in the V-stitches before your double crochet 2 together, all right? Now let's all continue, won't bring that out, continue along the row, turn, come back and meet me at that very first stitch marker. So everyone has to do that, and let's all do that now. And I'll meet you back here in a moment. Alrighty guys, here we are. We should all be here. Now, odd amount of stitches, you will have 3 sections, all right? So let's just talk about the evens real quickly. What I want the evens to do is to put 2 double crochets in that space. So 1, whoops, let's try that again. 1, hello, and 2. Not a V-stitch, just 2 double crochets. Take out your stitch marker and place it in the very next V-stitch. All right. You're going to skip this double crochet. It belongs to this V-stitch, right? You're going to skip that, jump into your next and do 2 together. So pop your hook, you're skipping 1, jumping into the second one, pull a loop through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over your hook and into your next stitch and doing your 2 together. For the odd amount of V-stitches, you need to skip 1 and put a double crochet into the next 1, 2, 3, okay, before your stitch markers. So you just need to put 3 double crochets, but for the even amount, we're still doing our next set of stitches. In there, we are doing 2 double crochets only, 1 and 2 for even amount. And take out your stitch marker for a minute. You will need it in a second. In your next V-stitch, you're popping a normal V-stitch. So just pop a normal one in there, chain 1 there, and pop your stitch marker in that one there. All right. Now with the odd amount of stitches, what I want you to do is pop your stitch markers in the V-stitch before your double crochets. All right, it's okay, it's a little confusing at the moment because I'm doing 2 at once, but hopefully if you are following your amount, if you are following your evens, it should be this way. If you are following your odds, it's what I'm saying, if that makes any sense at all. All right, now, I want everyone to V-stitch all the way across to the end. Come straight back, straight back at the stitch marker. Let me pop that stitch marker. I don't know why I didn't put it in. Hello. V-stitch all the way back to the stitch marker, and I will meet you there in a moment. Alrighty guys, here we are, everyone, at the end of this row. Now I would like everyone to do 2 double crochets in that stitch marker. Now let's get a close up like that, a little bit more. All right, 2 double crochets in that stitch marker stitch, space, that is, not stitch. Take your stitch marker out and pop it in that second last stitch. I'm sorry, the last stitch you just did. Wake up, Mary. And in your next section, you're going to skip, this is for even row only, by the way, guys. You're going to skip this stitch and you're going to do 2 double crochets together. Like that. You know how to do it, you've done it before. Now here you've got the 2 double crochets together in the previous round. Pop a double crochet in there. All right, and now you're doing 2 double crochets together in your last set. 1 and 2, like that. And then in that stitch marker space, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Pull up your loop, take out your stitch marker from there and pop it in that stitch that you just made. All right. For the odd amount, you needed to put 2 double crochets in the same space there like us. Then your 3 double crochets together. Okay, what I want you to do is join all 3 together, and I'm going to show you how to do that. In fact, evens can have a look at this for the next round. You'll need this. You're going to pop your hook in your, yarn over your hook, pop it in your first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over your hook, pop it in your second stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over again into your third stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops. Yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. Now this is for odd row only. For the evens, don't worry about that yet. All right, so just if you're not sure about that stitch, just rewatch that section again. After your 3 double crochet together, you need to do 2 double crochets in that space there, popping your stitch marker in your last double crochet. All right, then we all V-stitch all the way across, chain 3, turn and get back to the stitch marker and meet here in a moment. Alrighty guys, where we should all be is here. All of us should be here. So I want everyone to do 2 together. We're going to skip that stitch there and we're going to do 2 together here. So let's take out that stitch marker for starters. All right, so we are skipping that stitch and we're doing these 2 together. I'm going to get a close up for you. Okay, skipping that and doing these 2 together. So off we go and do 1 and 2 together. All right, just pop your stitch marker in your V-stitch right before your 2 together. Okay, now for the evens, we are doing a double crochet in the next stitch, a double crochet in the next stitch, and a double crochet in the very next stitch. For the odds, you are just doing 1 double crochet in the center. Yours should be fairly closed at the moment. And in your next stitch, this is everyone now, in the very next stitch, where that stitch marker is, take it out. We are doing 2 together. So everyone is doing this. Both evens and odds are doing 2 together. Jump into your next V-stitch, everyone. Do a V-stitch, chain 1 and V, like that. Pop your stitch marker in. Once again, everyone, get to the end of the row. Meet me back here in a moment. Alrighty, here we are at the end of this section, or the start of the section, I should say. Now, once again, you are just popping a V-stitch in that stitch where that stitch marker is. So plain old V-stitch. We're not doing anything fancy anymore. That's for everyone. V-stitch in there, chain 1, V-stitch in there. Alrighty guys, this is for the evens only. What you need to do now is do those 3 double crochets together like the odd row did before. So yarn over your hook in the first stitch, pull a loop through, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2. Yes, yarn over in your second stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, there's 3 left. Yarn over in the third stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2, 4 left. Yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on your hook. The odds, you just needed to put 1 double crochet in your center. Yeah. Yarn over, everyone pops a double crochet in that space, the 2 double crochet together. All right. Now, in the next V-stitch section, we're doing a normal V-stitch. 1, chain 1 and 2. All right. Now what I want you to do, everyone, is to just get to the end of the row. In fact, we're going to do that together. Oh wait, let's pop that stitch marker in the, yes we will. We need to put it in there, and we also need to pop our V-stitch, our stitch marker in the V-stitch before all the work we just did. All right, I want everyone just to do this part. So get to the end of the row. Chain 1. Chain 1. Just pop this on fast for you so you don't have to watch me. All right, here we all are at the end of the row. We're going to pop a double crochet in the last chain. All right, so this row is actually the closing up row. Now what I want you to do is to fold your work over. All I want everyone to do, this is both evens and odds, is to do your V-stitch until you get to that V-stitch and wait for me there. All right, V-stitch all the way across, everyone. Get to that V-stitch because this is our closing up row now. Get to that V-stitch and I'll meet you there in a moment. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of the row. I'm sorry, the stitch marker. Now I've got a tiny knot here, but that doesn't affect you because, well, I wouldn't normally work with a knot, but this is not an original, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Normally I would cut it and rejoin. That's just me being a bit of a stickler. You're going to jump into your V-stitch with the stitch marker in and do a normal V-stitch like that. Chain 1, which is going to be awkward later, and finish off the V-stitch like so. Alright. Let's take out our stitch marker. Now this is for everyone, okay? We should all be able to skip those 2 stitches there, and we should all have 3 stitches in the middle. If we don't, doesn't matter. We need to close up all of this. So if you've ended up with 5, 4, it doesn't matter. Just close it all up as best you can, like doing 2 together, 3 together. It doesn't matter. You can do 4 together. It doesn't matter. So yarn over your hook. You are skipping that stitch, and you are actually, before you go on, just pop a stitch marker in that V-stitch space. All right. That's important for later. So yarn over your hook, you're skipping that stitch and you are jumping into that next stitch to do 3 together. So pull your loop through like normal and do a normal start. Yarn over your hook, jump into your next, pull a loop through and do a normal second. Jump into your next, pull a loop through and do the normal third. And now you've got 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on your hook. If you've got more stitches, do a 4th. It doesn't matter. okay? We all have that one stitch beforehand, so don't worry about that. It's part of your V-stitch. Now this is where we're going to close up our work, and it's going to be a little different to what normally we do, okay? Now, if you don't like this, you could have just put both your sides together and sewn them across, but for me, this is what I'm going to do. We are going to jump into our V-stitch, start our V-stitch with a normal double crochet, and chain 1. Pull up that loop, okay? Now, remember that V-stitch right here? Sorry about that knot. I can't believe that knot was right there when we're trying to work right now. But remember your V-stitch where we put our stitch marker in? Pop your hook in there, take your stitch marker out. Pop your hook in that V-stitch, grab the loop, and pull it through the V-stitch, chain 1. You're going to go back into that space and finish off your double crochet for that V-stitch section. All right, for that V-stitch. So you've kind of closed it up here. You won't notice it for another couple of V-stitches. So yarn over your hook, you're going to go straight into your next V-stitch right there. With a double crochet, chain 1, pull up the loop. Now go to the opposite side and you can see the V-stitch right here. Pop your hook in, grabbing your loop, pulling it through the V-stitch, chain 1, and now you are finishing off your V-stitch in that opposite side. This is like a join as you go in a V-stitch type of thing. Now you're jumping straight into the next V-stitch. There. Chain 1, pull up the loop, find the opposite V, which is right there. Pull the loop through, chain 1, going back into that V-stitch like so. Now, if your stitch markers did not add up like that, it will be uneven looking here, right? But it's only because we've got 1, 2, 3. It's only because we haven't closed up. So we've got 3 across there and we've got 1, 2, 3 there. All right. So this is what it should look like on top. All right. When we open it up later, you should have that look and that look. All right. So it's actually closed, but a V-stitch closed. It's got a gap closure about it. And you can see how it's starting to curve over rather than having a massive point up the top. It's not a complete curve, but it's a little bit of a curve. All right. So now you are going to double crochet into your next, chain 1, pull up that loop, pull up that loop, go to the opposite V-stitch. We've done that one there. Pop your hook in and pulling that loop through, chain 1, double crochet in the same V-stitch. All right, now jumping into the next V-stitch and do that all the way along, chain 1, pulling up your loop and going straight into the opposite V-stitch. Now I've got less V-stitches here because, is that too far for you guys? Let's have another close-up. I've got less V-stitches because it's only a practice round, okay? So pull chain 1 and jumping straight back into your V-stitch like that. I'll show you again. That's the last V-stitch anyway. So you're jumping into your V-stitch with a double crochet, chain 1, pulling up that loop, going to the opposite V-stitch, which is right there, which is the very last V-stitch in this section. Chain 1, finish off your V-stitch. Now I'm going to let you head off on your own and finish your row, and then meet me back here and we will close up this section. All right, finish off your row and I'll meet you back here in a moment. All right, when you got to that very last V-stitch where you did your chain 1 and you finished off your V-stitch, you would be here on that side, right? Now what you need to do is double crochet in that top of that stitch where the stitch marker should have been. I've got one on this side but not that side. So pop your double crochet in that stitch marker stitch, 1, pull up the loop, go over to the other stitch marker that you have. You can take out that stitch marker like so. Pop the loop in, pull it through, chain 1, pulling up your loop, giving your work a cut. Alrighty guys, that is pretty much what you should have. Now it's a relatively big hoodie and this front section will be closed up towards the end, so don't stress, it's not going to be that big all the way through. Your job now, let's open up the hoodie a little bit. Alright, here we go. So that's your piece now. That's not your piece now. This will be your piece after this session. Now I've got a buttonhole here for my button. Okay, now I've already done my little buttonhole. I haven't put my button on because we're going to do that together, okay? But I've already made my buttonhole, and this is the part that you're going to be making right now. Both the buttonhole side and the button side. And once it's done, it'll go on that side, and you will do your button like that. And it'll sit like that, okay? It should have a very long point to it, yes, okay? And it should have a flat top, like a straight top, okay? That's that. So we're going to work on that right now. On one of the sides that we work on, and I still haven't finished my final row, that final row, and let's not lose a stitch, I forgot to put a stitch marker in there. That final row is going to go all the way up here, get to the top, it's going to do a tiny little corner, very small corner, go all the way across here, over your hoodie, around your hoodie, this is what's going to tighten up your hoodie later, around your hoodie, come across here, get to this section right here, and we'll attach to the very first stitch from the opposite side. And that's just one row only. All right, guys, that's going to be one row. And we may have to do that row there on the black, I'm afraid, because I've run out of red. Well, this is all I've got left of the red. It's not going to make it. I'm sorry, guys. I've tried. When you look at your piece on the red, there's two sides to that part right there. There's two sides. You've got that nice flat look, or you've got the bubbled look. This is not really important. You decide which is your right side. Seriously, that should be your right side. The very first row we started with should be your right side. When I say the first row, from the very, very beginning of our work, we did chains. This is part 1. Then we turned and did our double crochets. That's the row that's your right side, okay? It doesn't matter, but if you've got black, I found it was really difficult to tell. So right now I found my right side on the black and popped a stitch marker on the wrong side. Or whatever, pop the stitch marker on the right side, whichever suits you. And then I know that this is the side I need to, actually no I didn't, I popped it on the wrong side to do the weaving in the ends. That was my little trick. So pop your stitch marker on the right side if you are using black, because it's going to get confusing later. And you're going to do one side wrong and one side right. So it's really confusing there. So what you do is you find your left and your right side of your piece, all right? Alrighty guys, I had to re-record there, and I'll tell you why. Because I did my buttonhole on my original capelet on the left-hand side of my top, which really the buttonhole goes on the right-hand side. So I'm redoing it now so that you can get it done right and don't make the same mistake I did. Okay, you still need to have the front of your work facing you. This is the right side of your work, the right side of your whole capelet. That's the left-hand side of your capelet. That's your right-hand side of your capelet when you are wearing it, all right? So on this side, we're putting the buttonhole. Don't worry about it for now. We're going to work on the left-hand side. That's my left-hand side, and I'm turning it around, yeah? So we're going to work on the left-hand side. We're going to pop, that's the neck edge, yeah? We're going to pop our hook right on top of the neck edge and work all the way down to the bottom part of our capelet. So I'm hoping this is making sense. All right, so we're going to grab a thread. This section here is quite simple. Pull the loop through like so. in, let's just show you, I'll show you exactly where I put my stitch so you know. This is your chain 3 or 4, I can't remember, I think it's chain 3 from the beginning. You have a tiny little space in there. I want you to pop your hook in the stitched section and you'll see it, then grabbing your tail and then pulling it through like we normally do. Now in this row we're going to do single crochets, but first we're going to chain 1, and a single crochet is pop your hook in, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, grab your stitch marker. Super easy row, trust me, super easy section actually. In that space there, let's just put that tail at the back, it's confusing us. In that space right there, the same space that we are in but the different stitch, we're in the stitch, now we're going to go in the space and put 2 single crochets in that space. Alright, so let's go. Just in a big space, 1, you can see it there, yep. And 2. Now you know how to do the single crochets, we've just done 1, okay? Now in every big space you come to, 2 single crochets. So you're skipping the little stitch you see here and you're just going right into that very big space. So 2 single crochets in the big space, like that. 2 into your next. And that's it, all the way across the row. In every large space you come to, I will pop this on fast and meet you there at the end of the row. Alrighty guys, how did you go? This is where we are now. Right at the very end, there's that space right there. See how you've got this one here? You're going to skip that little stitch you see, jump into the big space and do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Also in this section here, we're going to pop a single crochet in the stitch. So not in the stitch that's here, that's the chain 1, but in the stitch right next to it, right. Tight stitch there. Oh dear. Anyway, there you go. So there's 1 single crochet in there, but because this is the pointed edge of our work, we're going to pop a second single crochet. I think I split the yarn there, it's probably why it's so tight. From here, you are going to do the next 2 rows, that is going to be a 2-row repeat. So from here, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, single in your first, pop a stitch marker in it first, another single in the same stitch because it's the end of the row, and then a single in every stitch all the way across your row. Alright, so what I want you to do is do a single, get to that stitch marker there, and I'll meet you there in a moment. Alrighty, here we are at the end of the row. Now I have a single crochet before my stitch marker. Don't forget that one, it's very tricky. It's easy to miss. And then you've got your stitch marker stitch. Now take out that stitch marker and pop a single crochet in there, which is just 1 for this part. And I'll explain that to you in a second. Alright, so what you're doing in this row, remember it's a two-row repeat. This row here, you're putting 2 single crochets on the bottom because it's the bottom of your work and you still want to point it. You're putting 1 single crochet on the top and then a single crochet in all your stitches. So that's all you're doing in this row. Now we're going to do a second row and then you're going to repeat those rows. And I'll tell you how many times in a minute. Just chain 1, turn your work, single in your first, and just 1. You don't have to put 2 in there, just 1. Okay, but you do need to put 2 at the end of this row. So a single in each stitch. I'm going to pop this on fast for you because when we get to the end of this row, I'm going to give you some instructions. Alrighty guys, here I am at the end of the row. I have my last stitch here, okay? In that stitch we are going to pop 1 single crochet and a second single crochet. Don't forget to take out that stitch marker. Alright, So we have officially done 3 rows, okay? We've done a base row and then 2 single crochet rows. So all you need to have in this set here is 9 single crochet rows. So really you only need another 6 more rows. So you're repeating these rows 3 times. So 1, twice, that's the first set. Once, twice, that's the second set. Once, twice, that's a third set. So really you just need 6 more rows. And when you're finished, your 6th row should end up right here. All right. If it ends up here, you've missed your calculations a bit, right? So your 6th row should end up right here. Okay. So continue along in this manner, doing both the rows over and over again until you get to your very last row, which is the 9th row altogether. We've done 3, so you only need another 6 more rows. Off you go and do your 6 rows, and I'll meet you back here in a moment. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of this row now, and we've got 1 more stitch to go. Now let's just pretend I've done 9 rows. Okay, I've only done a couple of rows, but we're going to go into that very last stitch again with your 2 single crochets like normal, and then you're going to remove that stitch marker in a minute. I can remove it now. And all you're going to do here is pull up a loop like so, give your work a cut. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to need this thread now. So give your work a cut and weave that end in. After you've done your 9 rows, of course, making sure you've ended off on the point part, not on the flat part where our top area is. So let's get on with our buttonhole side now. All right, so with our buttonhole side, so that's your one side done. Your left hand side done. Now we're going to do the right hand side. When we did the left hand side, we started from the top, but now we're going to start from the bottom, because when we go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, when we get to the top, we are going to start single crocheting across the top and across your hoodie. So we're going to start from the bottom. So grab your piece, move the rest of your work out the way, grab your piece. Let's bring that up a little bit. Here we go. So that's your little V-stitch from your previous row. Right in here, we've got that chain 3. It's really loose here. I've been playing with it. Don't forget I did do it once before already. As you do. All right. So grabbing your thread and just pulling it through like so. Now this is the bottom of our work now, not where our neck edge is, but the bottom. So we're going to chain 1. And single crochet in the same stitch, like that. Pop your stitch marker in like so. Now it's very similar to the opposite side, except we're putting a buttonhole here. And single again in the same stitch, because this is the bottom side, yes? And now you are popping 2 singles in that space right there. 1 and 2. And guess what? You're doing exactly the same as what we did in the other round. 2 singles in each space. 1 and 2. And this is the large spaces only. Not in that little stitch you see there, but the big spaces. The threads everywhere here. So 2 singles in there. 1 and 2. And keep going all the way across. Pop this on fast for you and off we go. All right, well that didn't take too long, did it? A very short row. All right, so here we are at the end of the row. And right in here, that space there, you're going to put 2 single crochets like we did on the opposite side. And we are still popping a single crochet in our top chain. Now that's a bit prominent because I've worked in it already. But yeah, pop your single crochet in that top chain right there. Chain 1, turn your work. Single in your first stitch, grab your stitch marker. Single in your next. And all the way down until you get to this section here. I'll pop this on fast for you. Single crochet in every stitch all the way down to your next stitch marker. Alrighty guys, how did you go? I'm almost there. Let's have a look. I have 2 single crochets left. So 1 in the first, 1 in your second, whoops, there, and a second in your second. You need 2 in that last one because that is the bottom of our piece. This is the neck edge, that's the bottom. So we're still making the point on that, okay? Chain 1, take that stitch marker out first, and turn your work. Single in your first, and a second single in there, and I forgot to put that stitch marker in the first one. Pop a stitch marker in your first stitch, guys, don't forget, because they can be tricky and easy to miss at the end of the row. Okay, especially when there's 2 in one stitch. Okay, and a single in every stitch. Let's pop this on fast again, all the way across the row, and off we go. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of the row. Now pop your stitch marker, pop your hook in the stitch marker stitch and do 1 single crochet, taking that stitch marker out. So that's the 3rd row in our piece. What I want you to do is to continue along this row, get to the end and wait for me there, because on the 4th row is normal, but on the 5th row is when we start doing our buttonhole. So just go ahead and do a normal row, get to that stitch marker there, and I'll meet you there in a moment. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of the row. Let's get a little closer. I'm going to pop 2 single crochets in my last stitch like normal. So everything down this way is normal, okay? What I want you to do here is just hold it there, leave that stitch marker, grab yourself another stitch marker. Oh, hang on a minute, put that in there first. Grab yourself another stitch marker. Now, see your stitches here? You're going to count them. Let's get this out the way so it doesn't blur. 1, 2, 3, 4, and in your 5th one right there, pop the stitch marker. I'll show you again. There's your first stitch marker, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So pop your stitch marker in your 5th one. And what I want you to do, we're not going to let you head off on your own. We're going to do this together. Chain 1, turn your work. 2 singles in your first, like normal, in the beginning of this row all the time. And I forgot to put a stitch marker in my first. I forget these stitch markers because I don't use them off air. All right, don't worry about my little knot here. We're just going to go over it. This is a practice swatch. And we're going to single crochet all the way across your piece. I found nothing but knots in both the reds and the blacks threads today. And it's just non-stop knots. It's driving me batty. You don't see me do the red, the black. The black is the main piece. And you don't see me doing it. And I get really frustrated when there are so many knots in one skein. It really annoys me. Anyway, we're almost there. We're going to get to that green stitch marker. Oops. All right, when we get to the green stitch marker, we're going to pop a single crochet in it and then take out the stitch marker. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Skip 1 and 2 and do a single crochet in your second last stitch and a single crochet in your last stitch. Take out your stitch marker. Chain 1 and turn your work. I'm just going to turn it this way because I'm going to unravel the mess I've made here under the table. You don't see this part. I always hide all the... I want to see the mess. There's threads everywhere and it's all wrapped around my work and such a mess. All right, so turning your work like normal. Single in your first stitch. Again, popping your stitch marker. Single in your next. And this space right here, you're doing 2 single crochets right in the space. And right there, you're putting your normal single crochet all the way across your row. All right, Too simple, too simple. Now on the way back, oh, what a mess I've made here. Now on the way back, you're just going to do normal single crochets all the way. Now let's grab a button. So grab your button. Now mine's already on the Capelet because I've already recorded this. And so, oh, can you believe it? Now I got one that was a similar size. Pop it in your hole. And it goes through like easy, yeah? If it goes through and it literally falls through and you haven't even popped it on, then your hole is too big for your button. Take the 2 rows undone up to here and only chain 1 and skip 1 and jump into your second. If your button is massive, then you're going to want to take these undone and do chain 3 or chain 4 and skip 5 or 6 stitches, something like that. So you want to make your buttonhole to suit your button, and this one is perfect. All right, so there you go. The best part is, guys, all you need to do is finish off your 3 rows here, get to your 9th row and meet me back here in a moment and we'll get ready to finish off our capelet. Yay, get excited. Alrighty guys, what you should have is that. Now we're going to do the final row using my black piece because the other one's not really finished. It was just a messy scrap and I'd run out of yarn, so I knew I wasn't going to get it finished. Alright, I should have done like a baby version of the whole thing. Never mind. So what you're doing here, I'll try and do the best I can with the black. You are single crocheting right to the very end of your work. And where you should be is up the front of our piece. Right there, you've got your single crochets there and then you've got your double crochets along there. The front is it? Let's do that again, doesn't matter, I'm on the wrong side. Far out. All right, we'll do that again. 3, 2, and 1. Three, 2, and 1. And 1. Alrighty guys, this is where you should be, and yes, I'm starting to use my black piece, but that's only because we're doing our final row, our final 2 rows. Alright, get excited guys, this is it, this is it. Alright, oh actually, when you get to the end, you should be right up to the top where your hoodie part is, okay? This is the part where we are going to start closing up our hoodie. All right. Okay. All right, now let's get started. I'll try the best I can do with the black, but there's not much I can do about it, guys. It's one of those things. I should have really bought some more red yarn, but anyway. All right, so that's our stitch marker stitch, just popping a single crochet in there with your 5mm hook. What's she talking about? Yes, we're going to take our stitch marker out, grab your 4mm hook, pop your loop up. Yeah, this is where it's all going to get all nice and tight. Okay, but when you do this section here, try not to do this part here real tight. Okay, we want to keep that a little bit loose. So now what we're going to do, it's still a bit, how's that? Oh, it's still very dismal. Put 2 more single crochets in that space. 1 and 2. Don't worry about stitch markers because you are not coming back. Yay! Not that that's a bad thing or a good thing. All right, in every space you see, you can see them, you're going to put a single crochet just along here nice and loosely. All right. When you get to this stitch right here, that's when we can start tightening up our work. So just single crochet loosely across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Oops, that was real too loose. 7 and 9, I don't know how many I did, but I'm just going to pop in 7 for me, right there. All right, and even though that's loosely, it's pulling a little bit, okay? So make sure that's nice and loose, yeah? All right, from here, this is where we're going to start crocheting like normal. Do your single crochets like normal. You don't have to worry about being loose or tight or anything, just single crochet. So what you're going to do, now there's actually like a couple of, looks like there's a couple of stitches there. So what we're going to do, we're just going to pop a single crochet in that space, only because we want to close up the gap, yeah? Then you're going to pop a single crochet in every stitch. There's a double crochet, it's upside down now, yeah? So we're going to pop a single crochet in every stitch across. So there's one, and you can see them. You can see where I'm going, just in the stitch like that. You're picking up both loops too. So 2 and 3 and so on. And I'm not going to count because this part here, you would have adjusted it to suit you. All right. So just get to your hoodie section, which is, oh, it's right there. We're not going to, I'll pop this on fast for you and we'll get as close as, no, we won't pop it on fast because we're right there and I want you to see exactly what I do when I get close to it, because it's a little bit fiddly when I get close. All right. But in the meantime, get excited, guys, because this is the final row. I know it sounds weird. You're thinking, how is she going to close that up? You'll see. You'll see. See, already it's starting to tighten up in here already. All right, because we changed our hook size, but now it's going to tighten up even more. The hoodie part will tighten up completely. We're almost there. And I'll show you the stitches once we're there, how to work around that little section. I'm going to show you those stitches close up so you can see. All right, that is the hoodie section there, and it's on top of that double crochet right there. So I've gone into this one. I'm going to take that undone because I did one extra and I shouldn't have. You need to get into your second last double crochet from the round, which is right there. Yeah. Then you've got one double crochet before your hoodie section, yeah, which is right there. I'm trying to get as clear as I can because this is black. All right. And you are going to do what we did with our hoodie. You're going to single crochet one, the corner, and that stitch together at the same time. So pop your hook in that stitch, pull up a loop. Now in that little tiny gap you see there, in the gap, pull up a loop. In the space, pull up a loop. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on your hook. Tighten them up here and then pull that loop through. Now you're going to leave this space and go straight into your next space, skipping everything else, just the big spaces we're going into with a single crochet. Skipping the little bits, straight into a big space with a single, crochet. Skip that little bit, big one, single crochet. So you can see it's already starting to pull in. Now what I want to do, so that you don't have to sit here and watch me do it because the hood is relatively big, get to the other side of the hoodie. I don't know why I'm singing. I'm singing because it's the end, guys. I'm getting very excited. That's the other side of the hoodie right there. Okay, get to the other side of the hoodie. That's all you're doing. You are popping a single crochet into every big space you see, the big spaces. Skipping all the little ones. Single, 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 all the way over to that stitch marker, and I will meet you there in a moment. Alrighty, guys, where you should be is, let me get a close-up for you. You should be, I've got one in there. You should have one space before your stitch marker. So you should have a space there, the little groove, and then we're going to work into that stitch there, and I'll explain that too when you get closer. So we're going to do the 3 together again like we did before. So I'm in that second last row. There's the last row. We're going to start our single crochet in that last row. Just tighten everything up so it's not too loose. Don't pull it too tight though. Take out your stitch marker. Pop in that little gap where the stitch marker was. Pull up a loop, 3 loops. And now we are actually in, let's see where we are now. We're in that stitch. It looks like we're in that one, but we're actually in the next one. So you've got to skip that and go straight into that next stitch. Pull up a loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on your hook, single in your next stitch, single in your next. Are you hearing the excitement in my voice? We are singling all the way across. That's a funny word to say. Singling all the way across. Now you know the stitch you're going into, it's the 2 loops. You're going straight into the 2 loops where your stitch is from the previous round. Well, previous round, the first round. The first row we did, it's not a round, is it? It's a row. First row we did, those are the stitches we are going into. So we've gone right back to the beginning of our work. Oh, get excited, guys. Get excited. All right, we're nearing the single crochet rows. Hence the word nearing. All right, let's get a close up here. Okay, whoops. Now I've got that one. I've done that second last one. I'm going to do my last one right there, like so. And then we're going into these stitches. Remember not to do these too tight. These are the single crochet stitches. So one in there, nice and loosely, one in your next, nice and loosely, and your next, and your next. I suppose not too loose because you don't want gaps, but you don't want it to be too tight because we are using a smaller hook for this section. All right, get excited because these are the last 2 stitches. What? There and right. We need to do a second one, sorry. That's right. And then we are slip stitching at the very top of that first single crochet or second last row that is. Pull a loop through, pull up a loop, grab your scissors, and I can find them. What did I do with them? Hello. Okay, here we go. Ta-da! Oh, I shouldn't have cut it. I should have asked you first whether it fit you. But I'm pretty sure it did. I did do the larger size on purpose in this area here. Initially, my pattern would have called for 5 rows of single crochet, or 7 if it was too tight. Mine was really tight, so I did 9, okay? And if it was too big, you could take your 2 rows undone and it wasn't a big deal. So I did do it on the larger size on purpose. Now, okay, I said that was our last row, which it was, but we still have a button to put on. Forgot about that one. But in the meantime, what we're going to do first is quickly weave in this end. Oh gosh, how did I manage that? Pins and I, we're just not best friends, I tell you. In every tutorial, at least once I jab myself with a pin. At least once. We're not good friends at all. Big enemies. All right, so your last end, you want to weave on the inside of your work. You do not want that showing. So what you do is you just turn it over to the inside. Now let's get a nice close-up. I don't know if you can see this now. It's really, really dark. Okay, you just want to go into one of the side stitches. I might just go into one first, and that will save the visual, make you, see it better. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but anyway. And there you go. You can pop that in there and give it all a tug. And there it is. All right, like that. Now that is the buttonhole side as well. So when you pop your button in, I'll show you that later once we do the button. All right. Now, just finding more, oh dear, so heavy, it's falling off the table now. Finding more ends to go into, and you're going to start to weave right inside your top now. All right, so don't come out anymore, go in where you can find some single crochet rows to go through. Anywhere you like, it doesn't matter. I think I might just go back up through the top and then I can go around it. It doesn't matter, it really doesn't. But these are really tight stitches, so the bonus is, And I find that really weird because I did some of the top ones loose. Oh, they're loose, yeah. The bonus is that's not going to come out if you put it in the wash, yeah. But yours truly, as you know, most of my regulars would know that I'm a big stickler and I don't wash in a washing machine. All my gear gets washed gently by hand, physically by hand. Now, once you've gone through it 2 or 3 times, just give it a bit of a cut, yes. Grab yourself a tail or a piece of thread, doesn't matter how long. It doesn't need to be too long. I don't know, that long will be fine, because we are now going to sew on our buttons. Just make sure that the needle you are using can go through your button, okay? Otherwise you need to get another needle. And this is the easy part, guys. It is so easy, this part. The question you need to ask yourself is, how far over do I want my button to go? I'm going to, look at this, look. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? let's try that again. The question is, how far over do you want your button to go? Yes? Well, let's just pull that thread through. Okay. All right. So let's grab our piece, making sure you are putting the button on the right side and not the wrong side. You don't want to do that. Well, not inside out, that is. Let's see, is that the right side? Yes, that's the wrong side, that's the right side. Okay. All right. If you wanted to get technical, your button should go literally on that 4th row that we did. It was actually on the 5th row where the chain spaces were, if you wanted to get technical. But what I do is I just go like that. I grab my needle, go through the back, find the little hole. Oh, that didn't work. It's so dark here, you can't see. I'm just going to take that buttonhole section off. Let's pop the button through. I'm going to move everything out the way because I think this is causing us to be, that's better. Is that better? All right, so I pulled that through and I'm going to take that way. Okay, so you've got one thread dangling, the other thread is still hanging off your yarn, like so, yeah? So now what you want to do is you want to go back up just that little bit. So I don't know, jump over 1 single crochet and pop your needle in there. Right? It's literally in the same stitch that you are in, but just above it. So you're keeping your button straight. Now I used to find that my button would not be straight. Now being careful, don't pull this through because you don't have a knot on it yet. We're going to tie that up later. Okay, so you've pulled it through once, yes? Now you're going to go back into the same stitch that you first started with. Grab your button. Oh, wait a minute. Get it through the stitch first. Making sure everything is closed at the back and you haven't caught on anything. Grab your button. Pop it in. Yes. And then pop it through to the other hole. And then, remember that top stitch that you went into? You're going to go into it again. And give it a tug. Now, if you have 4 buttonholes, go over it 4 times, right? But I only have 2. So I'm going to go back through, making sure it's all pulled nice and tight. I'm going to go back through underneath, like so. And you can do it in a different spot if you like. Oh, I can't get it in anyways. What difference it make? There we go. Oh, look, that went straight through. You can do it in the same spot or different spot, whatever you like. But just making sure you're not tugging any of the cotton at the back, because I'm making sure that's not getting caught at the back or even underneath. All right, and do it again through the top. Get excited, guys, because this is it. This is your final bit. All right, here we go. There we go, and we're under control. I think that's enough. I think that's plenty. So going over it 3 times, nice and tight. You can't go through that gap anymore anyway. Turn your piece over and tie it in a knot. Once. Tie it a second time. Notice how I'm not taking my needle out because we're going to use that to weave in as well. And we are going to weave this in at the back wherever you want. Okay, find some stitches anywhere. Oh, so far away. Here we go. Just find some stitches anywhere and weave it in. Make sure you can't see the button. I find weaving it behind the button is the best way to do it. And that's it. There's one. And remember, you've already tied it in a knot once before, so weaving it in, you don't have to do so much. Okay, that's it for this one. All right, that's that. Cut that one. Weave in your other one, and your capelet is complete. Well, it doesn't look complete like that. It looks like a big mess, doesn't it? So let's do it up. Let's see what the button looks like done up. Oh, can't find the head. There's the head. Thread in there. Pretend like I did. Do it up. And there is my... Okay. So notice how that stitching and using a smaller hook and that stitching has closed up our capelet. It should look like that. Trust me, when you've got it on, it looks gorgeous. And there you go. And that's your buttonhole. Done, complete, and that's your bottom part of your work done, complete. And there you go. Can I bring it out anymore? No, that's it. Sorry guys, that's about it. All right, so don't forget to weave in that last tail behind your button. Let's just hide it in there, pretend like I did it. Weave in the last tail behind your button, and don't forget to join us on our lives Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m, Saturday mornings 10 a.m, Melbourne, Australia time, to get all the info and all the news about what is coming up on our channel, and to also put your input in as well. You can decide what happens on our channel. You can decide colour combination. You can decide what's going on. This capelet is made for Halloween, and it's actually made to do a Halloween funny video just for you. Now that video is coming up. I haven't got the date yet, but I will let you know the date. But that video is coming up very, very soon. Join me tomorrow for our spider. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and do all the wonderful things that you guys pretty much already do for me. And I'm very excited because our capelet is finally finished. Get excited, and ciao for now.